Just a few weeks ago, Breitling announced an update to their entire Avenger line, and here they are, Chronograph, GMT, and Simple Automatic. And despite these having new designs, somehow these are more Breitlinger than ever. Breitling is one of those brands, one of those watch brands that some people are really into and some people actively avoid. There are just extremes. These people are extremists, very extremists on both sides. I'm neither. I owned a Super Ocean dive watch from the previous generation and I really enjoyed it. And I'm always thinking about a Navitimer, and you all should be too. One of the main reasons for the collector extremism is that these watches are kind of extreme themselves. They're almost always big and heavy and bold. Most Breitling watches are not subtle. They're not meant to be. Some people just can't handle that and some people seek it out. These three watches, definitely not meant to be subtle. But there are some really nice improvements here over the previous Avenger watches, and I'ma show you. Let's hit some facts about these watches one at a time, starting with the automatic. Now, all the Avengers here are automatic watches, but this, the most simple Avenger, is called the automatic. I guess the name time and date didn't seem clever. On a bracelet, this costs $48.50, and on a strap, it's $4,600. Blue, black, or green dial. The steel case is 42mm wide, 51mm long, and 12mm thick with 22mm lugs. It's water resistant to 300 meters and weighs a respectable 164 grams on the full bracelet. I know there are a lot of people who fear watches larger than 40mm, and I know there are just as many people who are afraid of smaller watches. They run screaming. And at some point, you'll need to stop relying on numbers on a screen and go try one on. I'll keep trying to give you a complete picture of a watch, but really, only putting one on your wrist will tell you what you need to know. I mean, look at this 42mm watch on my magnificent 7-inch wrist. It looks great. It's definitely not too big, and shoot, maybe it's even too small. It looks good and it feels good, and I think there are two reasons that it feels good on my, say it with me now,
7-inch
wrist. The first reason is the thinness. 12mm is pretty thin for a 300-meter dive watch, and one of the reasons it's thin is because it uses an ETA-based movement. The Breitling Caliber 17 is a chronometer-certified ETA 2824-2, so it's going to be accurate, and it's going to be thin, and it's not going to have a great power reserve, about 42 hours. For $4,600, you can find a sports watch with an in-house movement, and if that's important to you, no shade, buon appetito. But most people, when they look at their wrist, they don't see the movement of the watch, they see the design of the watch. So thin, good. And the second reason this watch is comfortable is the new clasp. All the new Avenger bracelets have a new adjustment system in the clasp, and it's pretty good. I can't get a good measurement, but it could be as much as a 15mm adjustment, which is a lot of millimeters. And it can be ratcheted tighter while the watch is still on your wrist. Now, it's not made for that, but it can be done. Overall, this system is great, and it's even more important on the two larger, heavier watches, like the GMT. $5,550 on a bracelet, $5,200 on a strap. 44mm across, 53mm long, 12mm thick with 22mm lugs. This one weighs 172 grams on the full bracelet, and it also has a water resistance of 300 meters. It's available in either blue or black. Again, another thin one, and again, because this is using an ETA-based movement. The Breitling B02 is a COSC-certified collar-style GMT movement. That means that one crown position advances the GMT hand and the date, depending on how you turn the crown, and another crown position sets the local minutes and hours hands. This style of GMT movement, the collar style, might be the right one for you. Most days of the week, it is the right one for me. And that's because I'm far more likely to be calling someone in a different time zone than I am to be flying to a different time zone. And this does have a bi-directional GMT bezel, so you can rotate the bezel to track a third time zone, or more likely because you need something to fidget with, and by you I mean me. This bezel has 48 clicks, and it is very easy to turn because of these signature Breitling rider tabs. Rider tabs are these protrusions on the bezel at 12, 3, 6, and 9. And they're on all the Avenger watches. I'd say that if you don't like this design element, you probably don't like Breitling watches. And I kinda like them. I like that they don't look like anything else, I like that they make the bezels turn easier, and I like how they're finished. All these bezels are finished really well with radiant brushing, and the rider tabs have a fine polished bevels around the perimeter. Really well done stuff. What I don't like about these rider tabs is that I feel like I'm going to damage something or someone with these. No joke, I was holding my daughter's hand and this bezel scraped her face, so years from now when someone asks her about her facial scars, she'll have the dumbest story to tell people. The biggest and most expensive one of these watches is the B01 Chronograph. $8,250 on a bracelet, $8,000 on a strap. 44mm by 53mm long, 15.2mm thick with 22mm lugs. On the full bracelet, this one weighs 187 grams, and this also has a water resistance of 300 meters. Blue, green, tan, or black, those are the dial options for the chronograph. This is the only watch of these three that has an in-house movement. It's the beloved Breitling B01 movement. Beloved by Breitling, yeah, but also by Tudor and a few watchmakers, this is considered by many an excellent chronograph movement. It's also a chronometer and has about 70 hours of power reserve. The chronograph actuation is snappy, very responsive. And someone asked me if this chronograph could be used underwater, and I'd say no. Unless the manufacturer explicitly states that a chronograph can be used underwater, I wouldn't do it. But also, YOLO? And on my 7-inch wrist, I'm into this. It's large, it's supposed to be. Some watches are just supposed to be big, and a Breitling chronograph is one, or several of those watches. I was initially concerned about the weight of this watch, 180 grams, but I've worn this for several days in a row on the bracelet without issue. Except the one issue is that everyone is intimidated by me because I look so amazing in this watch. No, you know what, we're gonna leave that in. The case design on all these Avengers is new and improved, I think. Looking at the lugs and the case flanks, this is a new angular look for these Avenger watches. Previous Avenger cases and Super Ocean cases had these kind of rounded lugs with no real facets. Not bad, but kind of plain. Comfortable, at least. These new cases have angular lugs and a really interesting facet, like a trough that runs along the lugs and the case, and it seems to have a matte finish. Really good stuff here. Breitling kept the signature slash-cut bracelet links. These links are at an angle. I've always liked these. They're unique to Breitling without being heavy-handed or heavy-wristed. I like these new Avenger watches. I think they're an improvement in looks and in comfort. These are unapologetic in their Breitlingness. And for those on the like to love side of the Breitling spectrum, I think these are welcome updates. And for those of you on the other part of the spectrum, I'm honestly surprised you're still watching this video. Maybe there's hope for you yet.